Bob and I have pretty strong beliefs about today's topic, and it is that there are a bunch of areas where leaders are spending time where they shouldn't be spending time. So we're going to talk through that. More importantly, we're going to give you the other side of the coin and say this is where leaders should be spending time. So for all you leaders out there, buckle in. We're going to talk through some things. It might hit you in the heart a little bit, but that's okay because we're going to give you all the band-aids and bandages and splints, whatever you need to heal that little heart and get you turned around and focusing on the right things so that you and your team can be as amazing as you want them to be.
And Metacasters, I'm going to say it even simpler than Josh did. This is the yin and yang of leaders spending their time.
Wow, man, this guy,
I'm
he
just
is a,
I,
he's a maestro.
I'm a maestro. Let's get into it. Josh,
Okay, so we each have a list. Somebody has a list that's longer than the other buddy. I think the person that has the list that's longer than the other body should go first. So, Bob, would you like to go first?
so maybe we do it this way, Josh.
Okay.
I'll list my where do they spend times first, and
Mm-hmm.
then we can get into where should they spend time. So here's
Sure.
where I have what, one, two, three, four and a half or so. So I have meetings, and I'll list them all, and then you can react, and we'll talk about was I
Mm-hmm.
unfair or not. Um, Crisis management was something I listed, and what I mean like is emergency handling, and everything is an emergency. I got to get involved in everything. If I don't get involved, it's not done right, would be another way
Yeah.
of thinking about that. Planning, like planning and over planning and over planning, and then planning some, and then when in doubt, plan some more. So
Yeah.
I'm putting, then tongue in cheek golf, schmoozing, playing golf with the CEO, or just doing things like that, which isn't bad. I'm getting a little, and then meetings again. I circled around, so I have meetings twice, and I think it's fair. I I find a lot of leaders are so proud of, like, they talk to me as a consultant, and they're trying to convince me of how important they are, I guess, or something, or their ego's getting in the way, and they want to align with me, whatever they're trying to do. And they're like, typically I'm double booked. And then 30% of the time I'm triple booked. And then and then 50% of the time
Yeah.
I'm quadruple booked. And I'm going to
It
the
is. It's like
bathroom.
it's worn. Yeah.
It's
It's like
like
a
this.
badge of honor.
It's like a badge of freaking honor. And I try to keep my face. I want to get paid a little bit, particularly at the beginning. I don't want to just alienate a client right at the beginning. But I'm thinking to myself, holy crap. If that's your value proposition. So that's my list. It's sort of in those areas. Reactions to that. And if I'm
Well, number
unfair,
one,
slap me into submission.
number one, the fact that you used meetings twice irks me, given that there was a little bit of a competition before we hit the record button about who had more ideas for this discussion. So
Does that
that's a whole separate topic we
can
can
you get
talk.
over that?
Yes, I can get over that, but I want to highlight it. I want to make sure that everybody's clear that there was a competition pre-recording. Bob was lording over me the fact that he had more ideas in less time, when in reality he had the same number of ideas and just cheated and copied. So beyond that, meetings, yes, I agree completely. There are way too many folks that it is a badge of honor, and it is similar to the planning bits of if I'm not there, it's not going to go well. So
Yeah.
becoming
Yeah.
this funnel where work has to flow through me. And if I don't have my hands on it, then I'm not sure it's actually going to happen well. That is a thing. Planning is the same thing. Oh, well, let's replan or let's plan for the plan or talk about the plan. The number of times and I am guilty of this. So people that I've worked with might have heard me say we need to plan for a plan. Yes, guilty, done it. I had good intentions, and maybe I stubbed my toe. Crisis management. yes, there are too many folks that create a crisis. And I even had a person that I worked with that I remember when they said this to me, I just gave them, that look a dog gives you when it's confused and it tilts its head to the side. Like I gave this person that look and just immediately said, "What did you say?" So they said, "Never let a crisis go unused." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by unused?" "Well, there's a crisis, so now there's a tension. So how can we use this to our advantage to turn the tide on this other thing?" And it was just a really uncomfortable situation where, like, that's not how we should be viewing this. Number one, is it really a crisis?
Yep.
Especially if we're already thinking about how do we use this to our advantage. That's not a good tone to be setting. So there's crisis management, crisis uh like spotlighting and making things a crisis when they aren't for various reasons, to get resources, to get attention, to get whatever it is,
Yep.
similar things along that path. The golfing schmoozing, I don't
You know
see
what?
that
Can I
too
clarify that?
much.
Can I clarify that?
Yeah.
What I really meant was putting something above the team,
Yeah. Okay.
right? It's like I have a meeting with the CEO, and this is balancing act, but
Yeah.
I've seen leaders. So looking at myself, I would always put the team. If I had a meeting with the team or the team needed me, and then I had an event with the CEO, or I was talking about my bonus or whatever, and I'm exaggerating, but the team was the number one priority for me. And I see a lot of leaders in this other reaction, they'll put everything else above the team in time, if that makes sense, right? They'll give
Yeah.
time to everyone in the company, and then the team sort of gets the leftovers. And that's maybe that's the better way that of what I was trying to say.
And what's interesting about leaders that I've worked with that operate in that manner is naturally their teams are underperforming, and yet they're confused about why they're underperforming, and there's an expectation that all this magic is just going to happen, that if I put butts in seats, they're going to be amazing, and I don't actually have to do my job, I don't have to lead. If I just like put people in seats and point them in a general direction with this big, to use a Bob term, this big Goombas plan, and put it out there, they're going to execute on it and it's just going to be magic. It's amazing how those actions lead to underperforming teams. And then too often, I see those same leaders jump towards, we need to outsource. We clearly can't have a team. This team can't get it done. So the right thing to do, let's save some money. Let's outsource this. Let's do this. And then surprise, surprise,
Yep.
the outsourcing doesn't work. And it's not the outsourcing team's fault.
No,
It's that leader's fault, just as
absolutely.
they proved before with the in-house folks. So continuous problems. So those are pretty reasonable. Those are okay. They weren't quite as good as you boasted
I
pre-recording.
wasn't boasting.
That's fair.
I was boasting about the speed of my list first, as you were pontificating. But
Okay.
it's not a competition, Joshua. What's your list?
Robert,
Please
we've
share.
covered this multiple times.
I
It
know we
is a
did.
competition. Okay. My much better list
Of
is, there
course.
are too many leaders that focus on underperforming team members.
Oh, okay.
The old 80% rule. People are spending 80% of their
Yep.
time on the bottom 20%
Ah,
of their team
I
when they
love
should
that.
be doing the opposite,
I love
spending
that.
80% of their time on the top 20% of the team. They need to maximize the maximizers.
Got
That's
it.
where
Got it.
folks should really be spending time.
Okay, so that's one.
Uh, yep. The next one is, they're worried about the small shit, the stuff that doesn't really move the needle, as
Ooh.
opposed to focusing on, how do I empower my teams? How do I shape the culture? It's just like all this little petty stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Oh, you didn't, your TPS reports weren't formatted the right way, or something like that.
Yep.
Where, like,
Yep.
in the end, like, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
but people, man, people love it. Now, this one you could get on me a little bit as potentially complimentary or repetitive of the worried about the small shit. It's the tactics. People focus too much on the tactics and not enough on the strategy. So they are, again, how do we build this thing? How do we ship this thing when they've hired people that's their job?
Oh,
They've hired
that
people that
sounds
are
totally
experts.
unique from the small stuff. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that's a twofer, Joshua. But you know what? I think you're beating me on quality so far. At least from
I
my
know
point of
that.
view, I think you're
Yeah.
nailing. You're making me. My heart's beating fast here.
Good. Good. Well, yeah, I've
Good.
got a fourth one coming up, and I added a fifth one so that I had five, unlike some other people. Uh, Too many leaders spend time reacting and then slapping the "oh, we're agile" label on it. This is what agile teams do. This is what agile organizations do.
Ah,
We react as opposed to being intentional and having a plan and a vision and confidently marching down that path. We're just going to, things are going to happen to us, and that's okay. We're just going to let things continue to happen to us forever. And that's agile. That's who we're supposed to be.
so that agile
Wrong.
is an excuse thing, right? An
Yeah.
excuse for bad behavior. I do. All joking aside, I like your list. I really like where you've gone with this. What's your fifth one?
The fifth one, similar to your golfing metaphor, but I see too many leaders focusing on the board
Yep.
and in that reactionary mode. And what I spend a lot of time working with executives on is leading them on how to lead the board as
Ah,
opposed to the
yeah.
board is the leading.
Yep.
I always just ask the question, how can someone that shows up for a monthly or quarterly board meeting know more effectively than the operators of the company what our options are? That doesn't mean those board members don't have good ideas and great ideas and good challenging questions. Yes, that's what it is, but that's what it is. It's not an edict, it's not a direction. And what you'll find is the board members don't want you to think that it's a direction, but I've seen and watched multiple companies after an investment, it takes them 12 to 18 months before they learn how to direct the board as opposed to the board directing them and how to work with them. So they spend too much time in that, takes their eye off of their team, the eye off their products, and then things get messy and it's just a disaster. So, yes, you need to have a good relationship with the board, but it's a relationship. It's not these are the bosses. This is do or die based on what they say. So, those are my five things, Robert. React, if you will.
No, I mean, I like them. I think there's a more tactical or more operational nature to what you were saying. And across your items, like I put down the 80-20 rule, like where do you spend your time as a
Mm,
leader? And then small stuff. So there was a balance. The thing, I mean, I think across all of yours, it was sort of, you're imbalanced as a leader, right? You're spending time here when you should be there. So I can't argue. I think it was insightful. I think it was targeted. I think it was right on, right? I think
wow.
I think your experience shined through. So and I'm just layering the cake here. So, but I'm not being facetious. I have nothing to add. I like how that unfolded, Josh. With so
Mhm.
Metacasters, that was the where do traditional leaders, where are we seeing them spend time? And it may be a mistake, it may be out of balance. Now I'm excited about going towards the where should leaders be spending the time? And I want to share my ideas. I'll do it in
Yeah.
mass, and we'll do the same thing. And I'm intrigued now to hear. I don't know what's been going on with Josh Anderson Metacasters. Something magical is in the freaking air. Like he's writing, I just don't know. He's 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 growing in front of my eyes. Uh,
Evolving.
he's evolving. So here's mine. So where should leaders spend more time? Uh, Hands down. So the previous list, reduce that by 80%. Now I have time. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? I have time on my hands. Cool. Let's think about this. Building relationships. So my number one thing is build relationships. Probably 360 relationships, but I would and I didn't think about this when I was writing it down, but I'm thinking build relationships first with your team, second with your and first is not just with the team, but spend more time with the team, and then a little bit less time, but with your peers, build peer to peer relationships. And then maybe third, build organizational relationships. But really spend time building relationships, spending time. It's your job to get to know people, it's your job for them to get to know you. It's not just professional relationships; it's personal relationships. It's bringing another way. Bring your whole self to work and empower other people to bring their whole selves to work. So that's first. Spend time on sharing your vision. Share your vision, your mission, your vision, our vision. Co-creating it, storytelling around it. Share it, share it, share it. Don't spend. That's your job to spend time on it. Be repetitive. Give yourself permission to be repetitive. Developing your team, and this is different than relationship building. I'm thinking of mentoring. This is employee development, and this is not sending. I sent Josh to a Scrum Master class, so I'm developing. No, this is not. This is the one-on-one stuff. This is where you're finding like succession planning, where you're looking at people and saying, you know what, Josh Anderson has potential. I'm going to be spending time to be a leader in this organization. I'm going to spend time with him. I'm going to mentor him, or you mentor the mentors. I'm mentoring Josh to mentor other people, right? He has potential. So I'm encouraging him to do that. So in development and mentoring, the fourth area is take care of your darn self care as a leader. So take some of that time, right? With all of the brouhaha, so the golfing or the schmoozing, and I was joking there, or the spending time else, spend time with yourself. Be apolitical. Don't worry about politics. Worry about yourself. So self care, and then related to that is learning yourself. I would say activate your humility and say there's stuff I don't know, and be curious and give yourself time and space to learn. To be a student, to reflect. So I would put reflection as part of learning. Reflect on what you're doing. Be a reflection artist and 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 learn yourself. I think, in my sense, I'm thinking growth. If there's a theme across all of them, is that fair? Yeah, I think so. It's growth. It's growing the organization, growing yourself, being a growth artist as opposed to maybe an execution artist. So that's my
Yeah.
five, Josh.
Growth artist, reflection artist. This guy
I'm
is on
I'm
fire.
I'm trying. But yeah, but you raised the bar, my friend. I
Well,
can't. Exactly. The
yeah.
pressure's on.
All right, so I want to react to each of those. On the relationship piece, I think that's a huge thing that as I was growing up as a leader was downplayed and actually was looked
Yeah.
upon as a weakness of you shouldn't have a relationship. You shouldn't like they're robots and you need to be able to fire them at will without any,
I, yeah.
anything getting sucked out of your soul. And that's how when I was coming up as a leader, that was the expectation. And I was uncomfortable with that. So I chose to not go that direction. But unfortunately, there are too many leaders that that's what's expected of them. So if that is something that as you grew up as a leader, you've been told, Bob and I are telling you that's wrong.
Yep.
So change it and invest in understanding and knowing people. Shared vision. I can't repeat that enough. Just it and repeating about repeating. I always say you have to say it 7 times, but the thing that struck me when I was really focusing on getting better at this, and I got frustrated because I felt like I was saying the same thing over and over again, was that as I was hiring, there might be people in the room that had heard it 15 times, but there also were people in the room that had heard it zero or maybe just one time.
Yep.
So I had to consistently deliver that time over time over time so that everybody got to the same level of knowledge and exposure to where it really was just a part of their essence and who they were and how they thought and the way that we rolled. So yeah, that just underline, highlight, italicize, that's a huge one. Develop your team. This is something that over the past 5 or 6 years, I see people just begging for, just absolutely begging for someone, please help me grow in my role. I want to get better, but I have leaders that aren't invested in me at all. And so they leave and they go somewhere else with the hope that somebody's going to develop them, and it doesn't happen. It is painfully missing across leadership in the technology space that I've seen, where there's just an expectation that we're going to hire you and you're going to naturally grow by yourself. Why, yes, there are people that can do that, but that has a ceiling because you don't know what you don't know. It's always better to have a coach or a mentor to help you find your way through this. You're going to get to the right answer sooner if you have one there supporting you, as opposed to just wandering the desert hoping you try the right things and it sticks. So this is something that it just hits me in the heart because I have friends and former coworkers that have reached out to me. I just can't stay here anymore. Like, no one is investing in me to get better, and I can't continue to live like that. So it is a frustrating thing to see. Self-care. Yeah, I stink at that. That's a thing that I'm working on getting better at. And it's something that I've actually written about in the past couple of newsletters about not taking the time to hit the pause button, invest yourself, be that reflective artist, and really understand that. Oh, Bob wants to call timeout. Let me guess why Bob wants to call timeout.
Guess why?
I don't know.
A couple of things I've what about in the last couple of newsletters?
Wrote,
Yeah. I just
written.
Metacasters, I wanted to put a little placeholder on that notion. And
Yes. And I'll
and
put a couple places.
let's take a sideline. If you're not listening, if you're not subscribed to Josh's newsletter, joking aside, I poke the bear because he's sort of abused me for years when I talk about I've written a blog post about that. So that's just a return. But you should be listening to his newsletter. All right, Josh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Enough of the
There will be a
commercial.
link below. And so that continues into the next one about the self learning is that leaders with good intentions are so often focused, good leaders are so often focused on enabling their teams. That's where they spend all of their time. And the really good leaders reach the ceiling where they don't get any better because they don't allocate time for themselves to learn, grow, heal, whatever it might be. So for even if you're crushing it out there and you've listened to all this and everything we've said don't do, you don't do, and everything we said you should do, you're like, yes, I do that. Invest more time in yourself. I don't know how that doesn't get you bigger, better wins. And I say that because I know I'm not good at it. And I think other good leaders are not good at it because we put others before ourselves, which can be dangerous. Okay. I think I hit all of your things. So I'm going to go into my list.
All
My
right.
theme My theme is developing your unique right to win, both
Ooh.
as a company slash product and as a leader. So, what is the thing that you do that is special, that is unique, that is better than everybody else? I spend a fair amount of time coaching teams and people to learn and discover that. I am on that same journey as I go down this writing path that I'm on, as I'm trying different things and really trying to maximize the unique experience and knowledge that I have. So I'm investing here, which is probably why I'm focusing time here. So you go back to when you're spending time with underperforming team members, that's that's a race to the bottom. And I am pretty darn aggressive with folks that if they're not performing, how much energy and effort is it going to take for you to flip the script and get them to begin performing magically? So the best thing for you to do is move on from them and find somebody that does perform well. And then what I like to say is maximize the maximizers. So those folks that are just crushing it, invest more in them to enable them to be more successful, and potentially, as Bob talked about, mentor other people to make other people great in similar ways that they have. Uh, Again, when I think about what makes a company, an organization, a team, a department special, it's the empowerment and culture that is created. So that's a unique right to win. Everybody's going to have the same special. There's going to be competitive with, there's going to be bugs, there's going to be features that are hard. That gets you through, the thing that your strategy, your vision, all those things Bob talked about, your strategy, all those things have to be front and separate you, and then invest the time in saying it over and over, developing it, highlighting it, celebrating, so that it just becomes a part of the DNA of the group of people that are making this special company happen. You've heard the saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. This is that same thing, but it's more about, you have to be intentional to do that, because that is a unique right to win that you will have that will separate you from the competition. Similar thing, wrapping up with being intentional with the board pieces of what is special about us. What are the things that are going to separate us? There are so many companies that I talk to, help, consult with, that don't actually have a strategy. They're just in the world of what I say, you're just doing shit. And some of it's working, some of it's not. But you need to get really intentional about understanding what you can do that no one else can, building a strategy around that, and then executing on that. And you'd be amazed when you have that strategy, when you have that intentionality, when you have that plan, and you step into a board meeting and that's what you talk about, that conversation is going to be much different. It's going to be, wow, that's amazing. How can we support you? How can we accelerate you? What can we do? As opposed to, why are your sales numbers going the way they are?
Right.
Do you have the right leader? Blah, 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 blah. All of those questions fade away when you're on your front foot, when you have that clarity, when you've understood what separates you. Now, it's easy for me to say that you can just figure that out. That's really hard work to figure out about you personally, about you as a leader, and about your product and company, what separates you. So you're going to have to really invest time. If you need help, reach out to me. It's a thing that I do. I help companies with. Reach out to Bob. I know Bob's done it. I know Bob can help people with that. So there's no shortage of support in this pretty difficult thing we're talking about it. But if you want to be a great leader, if you want to have a great company, you have to do these things. Otherwise, you're just going to end up and also ran. And nobody likes to be listed as, yes, we also ran in that race. You want to be listed as, hey, we finished in the top 3, or we
Yep.
won the darn thing.
Yep.
Okay. I'm done talking for now, Bob. I pass the baton to you.
Oh my gosh. I almost fell asleep. No. I love I mean I love your list. The theme, I'd like to replace the theme that you talked
Okay.
about. And what struck me is it's strength based. And
Yeah.
what I mean by strengths is finding in the market what we're strongest at, finding in the team who are the strongest folks, finding in the culture, emphasizing that we're a strength. We're leaning into our strengths. We're leaning into what we're good at. We're taking time to lean into that stuff. And I think positivity is a part of that. We've talked in the Metacast about appreciative inquiry, Josh, in the past, which is don't focus on your weaknesses, focus on finding your strengths and then amplifying your strengths, right? As a sports team, if you're good at, now I'm taking a stretch here, if you're good at passing and you're not good at running the ball as a football team, then lean into the passing. Do
Right.
that 70% of the time. That's what we're good at. It doesn't mean you don't run the ball well. So you're leaning into the strengths. Now that has dynamics in your strategy, right? That's going to, you may have a hard time, playing against a team that has great defenders on the back end, etc. But the point is, don't go away. That's our strength. They're going to have to match us. So I just like the way you talked about. I think a leader's job is building up the strength, identifying, seeing, and identifying the strength of their team, the strength of the market. What you didn't say directly is to strengthen themselves, which aligns with what I was saying, Josh. Right? The build
Mhm.
your. So it's not just the outward strengths. What am I good at? Josh, that's something that you've developed. I've seen that over time. We don't talk about it much, but like acknowledging, being aware, being self-aware of this is what I'm good at, and then leaning into that. So I can't argue with anything you said. I think the whole Metacast has been complimentary.
Yes, I appreciate the rephrasing of focusing on the strengths because as a leader, it's your job to maximize the output of your team. People might say that's like a factory level thinking, but in reality, that's still what it is. As a leader, it's my job to make this group of people as effective as possible.
Yeah,
And how do you do that if you don't focus on the strengths? If you're always focusing on the weaknesses, I don't understand how you get to that truly maximized point where we as a group of people are optimizing as effectively as possible. You can't do that if you don't focus on strengths. So if you're wondering why maybe you're struggling a little bit, just hit the pause button and listen to what Bob just said. Rewind about 2 minutes, replay what Bob said over and over and over again, and focus on those strengths.
so Metacasters, I think Josh and I have nailed it. We're going to sort of stick a fork in this episode, just really to wrap things up. Going back to the beginning, we were talking about a set of things. Where are we observing leaders are spending their time? An affinity. They have an affinity here, and we're not judging, but it's okay to have meetings, etc. But we're saying maybe those are less effective. And what we'd like to really talk about is these positive shifts that we were talking about with Josh's 5 and my 5, or whatever the numbers were. And I just want you to, it's time for leaders listening to this to make a shift. We've been spending time as a precious commodity. Your time is precious. Invest it well. So look at, where am I investing my time historically? And then have we inspired you to maybe shift some of that time investment? I hope we have. So from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina,
And from beautiful downtown Fuquay Varina, North Carolina,
I'm Bob Galen.
and I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake.
And bake.
Take care, y'all.